So this is a really good question because it hits on a lot of different concepts. So they're comparing the annual consumption per person on average for whole milk versus for low-fat milk. And for this first scenario, they're saying from 1970 to 1990. Now, an important thing to note is whenever we're setting up ordered pairs to represent scenarios, the time is always the x-coordinate. Now, why is that? Well, because time is always independent. Time always goes on the x-axis, the independent axis, because it doesn't matter, we've talked about this, it doesn't matter how fast you run, how many hours you study, how many calories you do or don't consume. Time does not change based on any kind of behavior we exhibit or anything that's occurring. Time is independent always. So the year, the month, the day, whatever it is, the number of hours, that's always going to be on the x-axis. It's going to be the x-coordinate. So it's saying from 1970 to 1990, when we're talking about the whole milk scenario, it decreased from 101 back in 1970 to 41 quarts per year. Now, an important thing to note there is for that particular scenario, that means the initial consumption was 101, which is like the y-intercept. And because it's declining, it's going to be a negative slope. At this point, I would go ahead and use my program, slopeint, which is program number 3. And then we'll type in these ordered pairs of 1970, 101, 1990, 41, and we get the slope is -3. Now you might be wondering, why is the y-intercept not 101? Why is it 6011? Well, that's because they're using 0 instead of 1970. So you can imagine how that's going to skew things. So just get the slope from here and trust that it makes sense for us to start with 101 for the consumption. Because otherwise, everything's going to be shifted because instead of using 1970, like I said, they're making it 0 for the year because a y-intercept normally occurs when x is 0. Now, in the other scenario we have, when talking about the consumption of low-fat milk, we see that instead, still using those same years, 1970 and 1990, low-fat milk increased. It went from 25, and they're still going in the corresponding order here, the respective order by the year. So in 1970, there was 25 quarts per year, and in 1990, 60 quarts per year. So the initial value is still 25, so we'll put that here. You'll see why. And because now the rate is increasing, it's a positive slope, but let's go ahead and see what that slope is. And what you'll see is if ever you don't get out of a program and you want to get back right into it, like you see the word done there, I haven't done any calculations since then. If I just press enter, it opens up that exact same program. Now, it's rare that you're going to use the same program twice in the same problem. This is one of those rare scenarios. But also, if ever you make a mistake within a program and then you want to just get back right into that program, you could do it by pressing enter. So let's go ahead and type in the ordered pairs for this low-fat milk scenario of 1970, 25, and then the other ordered pair as well. And notice we have a positive slope of 7/4. And if you prefer, you could type 7 divided by 4 if you want the decimal equivalent. Either one is fine. I'll keep it as 7/4. And keep in mind what this represents, this x that I put there, per year. So for x number of years. Now they want the average annual per person consumption when the consumption of these two kinds of milks was the same. In other words, equals. Well, now we have one equation, one unknown, both of which are linear. They're both to the first power. So we're going to use solver at this point. So let's go to programs. Notice solver is program number 5. We'll just type in the left side and the right side, and we get x is 16. Now you might be thinking, well, why is 16 not an answer option? And that's a good question because College Board could have been sneaky and put that as a partial answer. But keep in mind, 16 is the number of years after which the consumption was the same. So now you can plug in 16 into either of these scenarios because this scenario represents the consumption of the whole milk for each year from 1970 to 1990. So we could input 16 to say, well, after 16 years, we know that the consumption was the same. Or we could plug it in here because we know that at that 16-year mark, the consumption should be the same regardless which one we plug it into. Let's actually see that for ourselves. So let's put 101 minus 3 times 16. We get 53, so the correct answer is A. But in case you're curious, I'm going to type in 25 plus, And to play it safe, I'm going to go ahead and do alpha y equals, press enter to do my horizontal fraction bar. I'll press 7 right, 4 right, and then I'll put in parentheses 16, and we get the same thing. So the answer is A.